Hello, Zeynep. Welcome to the interview. So please introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Where do you come from?
Okay, thank you for the invitation. I come from Turkey. I come from Istanbul. I was born and raised in most of my life in Turkey. I got my PhD in Canada. I stayed there for 5 years. And of course, I traveled a lot of the world. I lived in China for 1 year. I lived in the UK for 8 months. I'd like to think of myself, at least psychologically, a world citizen. But I'm proud to be a Turkish citizen as well as Canadian citizen, so I have dual citizenship. My educational background is psychology. I did my bachelor's degree, completed my bachelor's degree in psychology in Turkey and master's degree in social psychology. And in Canada, I completed the applied psychology program, mostly focusing on IO psychology at Queen's University, and I did a postdoc for 2 years at McGill University. So education-wise, that's my background.
So you are a really global person. And what is your topic today? What is your keynote topic?
Yes, my keynote topic is about leadership in general and what kind of a role leadership plays in sustainability, and why do we not see many people, assuming leadership roles. Because for sustainability, we know that, more people need to be involved and care about sustainability issues, not only environmental sustainability, but also social and economic sustainability. And unfortunately, in some parts of the world, there are corrupt leaders who are threats to sustainability. And I was really curious about why more people, in a way, better people, not corrupt people, more ethical people emerge as leaders. What is, keeping them keeping them away from leadership roles, and why do we end up having, unfortunately, inefficient, corrupt, tyrannic, abusive leaders? And we complain about them, but we cannot change them easily, and we cannot replace them with new blood, new leaders, with better values and higher ethical standards, especially, as I said, in some parts of the world, unfortunately. I was really both worried about that as a citizen of the world and citizen of the Middle Eastern country, if you like, in that region. And also scientifically, I was really curious about that. And because when I look at the literature in terms of leader emergence, we know that women do not emerge as leaders, and there are glass ceiling phenomena and glass cliffs and glass elevators and all that literature, but really not talking about volunteering for these positions necessarily, self-nomination or volunteering for these positions. So leadership emergence literature talks about mostly who is perceived to be a leader by the followers, by the group members in leaderless groups, but nobody ever talks about why people volunteer or why not they volunteer for these positions. Only one research most recently, well, it's not even recent now, 2001, Chen and Rasko published, I think, a very influential research where they talk about people's own motivations to take leadership roles, motivation to lead. And I was really impressed by this research. They talk about, people are motivated to lead because they want to, or maybe because they have to, because that obligation is given to them by their organizations. That was a breakthrough in terms of answering my question, like, why not people emerge as leaders? So maybe they're not motivated, or maybe they are motivated, but there is another barrier holding them back. And I was thinking that, motivation is not enough. People also have to have a courage, actually. They have to overcome their fear of leadership. And I introduced this term or construct called fear of leadership. And this is like worries that people have in their mind about the possible negative consequences of leadership. So I developed this construct, and I defined it in having 3 dimensions. Fear of failure, what if I fail in my leadership role? Fear of imbalance, work-life imbalance. What if my family life or my social life is destroyed because of leadership responsibilities and what have you. And fear of harm. What if I harm people? With the decisions that I have to make, somebody will be harmed, or I may harm myself because of the job-related stress. Because when you are at a leadership level or role, there is many more responsibilities, and the stress level increases, and therefore you can harm yourself. So fear of performance, fear of failure, fear of imbalance, work-life imbalance, and fear of harm are the three components of fear of leadership as I defined it. And whether or not it is really a different thing from motivation to lead, I have conducted several research to show that they are really orthogonal constructs, if you like. One may have a high motivation to lead, like Chen and Drasko mentioned, they may have high motivation to lead, but still a very high fear of leadership, and that kind of a person, of course, would not be courageous enough to take leadership roles. So that was the main idea, that for sustainable future, we need more responsible, ethical leaders. Therefore, especially in certain cultures, corrupt leaders are more, unfortunately, common. Therefore, in order to reduce the negative impact of dark leadership and abusive leadership, we need more people to engage in leadership roles, and therefore we need more motivated people and low-fearing people. And I talk about culture. I say in some parts of the world, especially, this is more prevalent. And with respect to culture, my most recent interest has been on power distance.
Could you please tell more about that power distance? What does it mean, and how you can compare different countries and different cultures?
Sure. Power distance is a cultural value dimension. Where we compare cultures across, or with which we compare cultures across the world. As you know, famous Gerrit Hofstede's framework, in his framework, it is one of the 4 dimensions of culture. And also later, Globe talks about it, and Schwartz Values Framework talk about it. Almost all major cross-cultural research programs talk about power distance. And it is the hierarchical structure of societies whereby the power holders have more privileges than others. They have more privileges, and nobody questions that. They have bigger houses, better opportunities for their kids, and they know better. They have the final word, and they cannot be questioned easily. One has to be always loyal to them, and things like that. So decision-making authority is theirs, and they're not very participative, unfortunately. So power distance is accepting that power holders are always have the final say, have the decision-making authority, and have better privileges, and that is accepted by the society. Nobody questions that. And one other characteristic of leaders in power-distant cultures is that they don't empower others to become leaders. They don't groom people to become leaders. They always want to keep their leadership position as much as possible. They hang on to it, if you like. And I'm thinking that's why maybe we're not seeing new people and more responsible leaders to emerge. Because of these privileges, of course, that they have. They don't want to lose their privileges and their positions, so they don't really develop new leaders, if you like. So I'm thinking that this fear of leadership is more observed or more prevalent, especially in high-power distant cultures compared to low-power distant cultures, and also for females. And the preliminary findings that I have shown today show that really, for example, compared to US, Turkish employees had higher fear of leadership, and compared to men, women had higher fear of leadership. So the culture seems to play a role in the volunteering for leadership roles.
And what kind of future challenges do you have in your mind? How could we encourage women and new leaders
Absolutely.
to take the role for future?
Absolutely. Now, when I say, we need to lower the fears of people, like fear of leadership, we need to encourage people and give people courage to take leadership roles. Courage is very important, of course, but I'm thinking that also perhaps we need certain level of fear of leadership. In other words, we don't want like fearless, reckless leaders who would say, oh, what if I fail, it doesn't matter, or what if I harm people, it doesn't matter. We don't want that, of course. So in terms of courage, yes, we want a lot of courage, but we want some level of fear, I think. So there may be programs. I'm also thinking about developing certain intervention programs or training programs, especially for women, to overcome their fear of failure, fear of harming others, but not to a very, very low extent. Otherwise, they can easily become abusive leaders if they are really fearless and careless and reckless. They can switch to abusive leadership. So I think there's this healthy level of worries that what if I fail and what if I harm and what if my work-life balance is harmed. So first of all, therefore, the first challenge is to find this optimum level of fear. What is the good level, if you like, and also how to, in our trainings, how to make people be more courageous and, even if they fail, how to be resilient to failures. And how to be, of course, worry about fairness and not harming people, but at the same time, not overly worried about making a decision. That you have to make a decision, and those decisions may be wrong for organization or for people you are leading for. But there are ways to correct the failures or wrong decisions at some point. So, as I said, I'm hoping to develop certain programs, especially for females, reducing their worries, reducing their guilt feelings, for working hard and being ambitious and seeking for leadership positions. Because unfortunately, females are kind of shy to even admit that they seek leadership positions and they're ambitious and they are career oriented, especially in collectivistic cultures like my part of the world. Telling a woman that she's ambitious is almost like a curse. You don't want to hear that from people, but when you say it to a man, it's a praise, it's a compliment, right? You're an ambitious man, it means a good thing, but you're an ambitious woman, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a good connotation. So it's okay to be ambitious, it's okay to seek leadership roles, because when you become a leader, as I said, you're serving your company, you're serving your country, you are fighting for sustainability, so you are leading for a good cause, and there's nothing wrong with it. And you can, of course, you have to make some compromises, and it's also fine to make compromises for the better good. So hopefully we can teach this to people, and it's okay to fail sometimes. It's okay to make wrong decisions sometimes, but you have to try.
And sustainability is our common aim as a work and organization psychologist.
Absolutely,
as well.
Yes. It is very important because we really cannot leave. We really cannot just leave the leadership of a country, of an organization, to one person. Sustainability is such an important aim that it cannot be left to one person, one decision maker. We need more leaders so that there are checks and balances, and people work on this ultimate game collectively, correcting each other and complementing each other. So it is such an important goal that cannot be left to just one person. So we need more people, more courage to do that.
Thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
the interview. We have much to do in future.
Thank you.